Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we're about to get started with the Dispatchers Roundtable. This is going to be round number 19, and as always, a word from our sponsors.
At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why, since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Hey. Welcome back. Now that we've had that word from our sponsors, thank you again very much, all of you, for joining us tonight. Again, this is round 19 of the Dispatchers Roundtable, and this live broadcast is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. And as always, there is a lot of stuff that's going on. I don't even know where to start. There is so much. There are a lot of virtual events that are going to be coming on. Next week is going to be the Kansas APCO virtual conference, which is going to be awesome, powered by Within the Trenches media. And then in May, we've got the North Carolina conference as well as the Virginia conference. Registration for both of those are coming up. And then, of course, in the first part of June, the first full week of June, 7th through the 10th, is going to be Dare to Be Great 3, the conclusion, the completion of the trilogy of greatness. It's going to be awesome. Thank you all so very much for joining us. A big thanks goes out to the patrons. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it was wasn't for all of you, and of course those who are out there listening, watching, sharing, supporting, and all of that. So thank you so very much. And we have got several people who are jumping in here and saying hello. And as I had posted up there, please, as you're coming in, a reaction, a share, and thank you very much for that. And also, roll call. We got people who are coming in here. We got Becky from the UK. What is going on? Thank you so very much for joining us. We got Halcyon, Sarah, homegirl Pam. What is going on out of Kansas? This is going to be excellent. We have a lot of good stuff that we're going to be talking about today, and some stuff that I am dying to learn about, as well as we're going to be talking about the NG 911 bill, 911 Saves Act, 911 goes to Washington, and much more. So let me get here. Oh, homegirl Leah, what's going on? Just jumped in here. Awesome. Welcome. Good to see you as always. And I'm going to bring up my guests. And the first guest that I have coming on has actually was on the very first roundtable. You know, we were talking about COVID and the PSAP and just how everything has been going on from that time. And it seems like so long ago now that that we had that first round. This is round 19. This is craziness. So this is going to be awesome, though. I'm excited about this, and I'm going to bring up my first guest. First guest is April Heinze, and she's the 911 and PSAP operations director with NINA.
Hey, Ricardo. Thanks so much for having me back. I can't believe I guess I was thinking earlier, when was it? I know I was on one of these. I can't remember which one. I can't believe it was the first one. Wowie.
Yeah, dude, it was the first one. Welcome back. And
Thank
you know,
you.
for a second there, as the promo in the beginning was going through, I saw you disappear. I was like, what happened?
Well, I live in rural Michigan, and that means I don't have stable internet sometimes.
Oh,
So I
gotcha.
switched to my backup. I have two, right? We're 911. We know how to be prepared.
I was gonna say, look at you being all redundant and stuff there. Very nice.
I know, right?
Well done. And our next guest, our next panelist here is going to be Dan Henry, and he is the Regulatory Counsel and Director of Government Affairs. And the both of you work for NENA, the National Emergency Number Association. What's up?
Hey, what's good?
What is going on? It is awesome to have you both here. And now that you're both on, we can go ahead and we can hit the music.
I can roll.
Nice.
Children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable.
Now that intro is actually inspired by April. Seriously, yes, we had a conversation for those who are watching and listening, and you as well, Dan. We had a conversation early on, and I'm pretty sure it was right after that first round of the Dispatchers Roundtable, and we were talking about how we can come in with an intro. And I remember you saying you should have something where there's like a bell, like ding ding ding, like a boxing match type thing. And I thought, and that night I created that one. I put it together.
I remember that. I remember saying it reminds me of like Rocky. Dun, 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 I kept thinking that in my head the whole time I was on the first time. And I want to say hey to Halcyon and Pam and Leah. Everybody's saying hi. I was trying to figure out how I would comment back, but I can't figure it out. So.
Well, it is awesome to have the both of you on here. Before we get started and jumping into these topics here, I want to give you each a moment to just kind of explain what it is that you do there at NENA in your current post.
Oof.
Go ahead, April.
Oh,
her
me.
backup. Yes.
Is it not working? Okay.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Well, I am the 911 and PSAP Operations Director for NENA, and what that means is I am a resource for operational folks for 911. I spent 24 years in a PSAP. I started off as a TC, worked my way up to Director, and I also worked for a vendor in the NG 911 world. As a matter of fact, it was in digital, and I had 3 wonderful years there. I was a PSAP liaison and industry affairs person. So and at NENA, I handle standards as well as I do a lot of PR, a lot of these types of interviews, education. I kind of work with Dan a little bit. I get to have my hand in the government affairs stuff just a little. Dan's really the smart guy, though.
I got a rebuttal ready for that, but I'll let you finish.
I'm good. That's enough.
Okay, so my first rebuttal, correction on April when she said PR. I think it's important to realize about what we do as an organization. The number of calls that we get just straight out of the blue from sometimes it's a local news outlet, sometimes it's a national news outlet that just doesn't know up from down when it comes to 911, or they know just enough to get themselves in trouble. A lot of the time, I don't know, probably every once a month, probably we get a call from like a new app provider, right? That has solved 911. So, when April says PR, it's really like she's a subject matter expert that has to gently, take these folks by the hand and talk to them about how 911 works from like sitting at the console all the way up to the network level. So like it is a thankless job because usually not usually, often they still get it wrong, right? But then sometimes like that news piece, that interview never even hits the news, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, no, it's super cool to have April on the team. I say that as someone who's been at Nina for like 14 months longer than she has. So I can say that. But yeah, it's really great to have her talent on the team and her experience. Because I don't have that experience. I don't have any time spent under the headset. I went to engineering school for undergrad. Decided I was not going to be an engineer about 80% of the way through that degree. And so like any good Midwesterner, I, gutted it out instead of like doing something else, right, and saving myself another 20 grand. But then went to law school, did telecom law at CU Boulder, which has a specific telecom law and regulation program, and then ended up out here doing telecom law and regulation, first in the commercial space, and then sliding into an organization called TIA, which some of you may know as the actual manager of the APCO Project 25 standard for LMR radios. And so that's sort of how I got into the public safety and the standards world. So it was kind of a natural progression. My predecessor, Mr. Fogarty, took me out for coffee one day and said, what do you think about interviewing for this role? Because I'm going to this other very important company. And that's how I ended up here. And I've been with Nina, I think, for 3 years now. Yeah, I'm loving every minute of it, even the ones that are stolen from my sleep schedule.
What has it been like for you though, man? Like that
Oh, man.
switch and coming into public safety and learning all of this different stuff, because I know that when I've seen the both of you, but you especially, when I see you in DC for the 911 Goes to Washington conference, you're all over the place. I think there was one time that the most recent time, that was the last time it was in person, we all went out to dinner, and even on the way there, you're talking like, we got this going on, this going on, this going on. And I just remember thinking, I'm glad it's him. Because there's a lot that's going on that I can't even imagine that you're going through. So how has that transition kind of been for you then? I mean, it's 3 years, but how, just either way, from those 3 years, how has that been for you?
I think as of about a month ago, I finally feel like I started hitting a stride in terms of being able to just like produce outcomes on my end without a lot of like help. One of the challenging parts about Nina, the great parts about Nina is that like we do operate like a family, and that like we're always communicating, right? And you can always get feedback from everybody. But then when things get really busy, like we only have like a dozen people in this organization, right? So sometimes you just got to produce stuff on your own. It took me until like 2 months ago to get to that point. So I think, GTW 2022, you'll probably see a much more relaxed, much less frenetic Dan, and probably much more effective, hopefully. So I think that the pandemic has actually been, there's a silver lining, at least in the sense that DC operates in such a like, I don't know, it's really hard to manage your time in DC, because what often starts out like, an hour meeting to talk about business turns into like exactly what you would think, right? 3 hours of drinks or something like that. But then like you have to do that with like 17 people a month, right? And it really does wear on you, and it takes years off your life. And so, the pandemic has been terrible, right? But it has at least sort of siphoned a lot of the communications that I do and that everybody does into an electronic method, which, I can at least close Outlook at night. All right.
So then, it's kind of a good segue then, because we're going to start out talking about the NG911 bill. So as you're talking about how, the pandemic has kind of been able to help in a way for you to, I guess, kind of focus a little more on a lot of stuff that's going on. I mean, is it safe to say that that also helps kind of push this along a little bit because people are able to focus some more? And before you can even answer that question though, but what exactly is this NG 911 bill? Because I threw this question in there
Sure.
in the comments for those in the audience, and I had put out, how many of you know what the NG 911 bill is and how important it is? So I'm going to see some folks in here answer up in a moment, but if you can kind of, either one of you, whoever wants to go first or how you want to do this, what exactly is this 911 or NG 911 bill all about? And I guess what's Nina's stance on it?
Well,
Dan, it's all yours, big guy.
all right. Okay. So we all got a general idea, right? What next generation 911 is, right? And how we're kind of, depending on how you look at it, we're like almost halfway there as a nation, like in terms of like, we've got a lot of deployments out there. We've got a lot of the sort of, we've done a lot of the hard work of like getting like conformance and interoperability testing and stuff like that, right? We've got like a marketplace with products for NG 911 out there, but we are not there right until we get to the end, right? Because Americans, everybody in this country, right, deserves a continuous NG 911 experience no matter where they are, right? You should be able to call 911 from the sticks and communicate with them via video, while you're getting talked through, right, CPR or something like that, right? You should be able to share multimedia stuff. We should be transferring calls from Boise to Birmingham, to Berlin. I use that, which is why it was such a tacky alliteration. I've been filming for GTW all day today. So the way that we get there, right? Whenever you go to, so you got to rewind like, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years. And picture us, 911, going to Washington and saying, we need funding for next generation 911. And Washington says, well, what else have you done? Right? Have you set the table? Because we're not going to buy dinner unless you've set the table. So for the past 5, 6, 7 years, we've been setting the table on all this stuff. And now we just have this one final piece left, which is money. And it's a fair amount of money, but in terms of, Congress and the type of money that we've been talking about in the last month or so, it's not that much money. So it's about somewhere $10 to $15 billion. And that rough estimate comes from the 911 office did an estimate a couple of years ago. They came out with this like 200-page document that had everything broken up into, different cases where you'd have like a multi-state EZNet. You'd have like 7 of those that were associated with the FEMA regions, or if you had like a nationwide cloud hosted solution, or if you had a state-by-state solution. And so they came up with this number, and it was like 12 billion and change, basically. That number, through just sort of the weird sausage-making process, pre-introduction, turned into 15 billion. And so we're here now talking about 15 billion today. And we've got this NG 911 bill as part of the House Democrats on Energy and Commerce infrastructure package. So you got a big circle here that is Congress, and then a slightly smaller circle that is the House, and then a slightly smaller circle, which is the Energy and Commerce Committee, they're the subject matter expertise committee that handles energy and commerce, which includes NG 911. And then inside that, right, you've got a slim majority of which are Democrats. So I think it's 30 plus sponsors for this bill. And it's a big bill. I want to say it's triple digit billions. At least. It's so silly that I haven't had the chance to pay attention to like commercial broadband parts of it, but Anyway, a relatively small sliver of that, 15 billion, is set aside for next generation 911. 90% of that bill is great, right? Particularly the 15 billion part, right? The price tag is, it would do it, right? It would get us nationwide NG 911, assuming that, everybody applies for these grants, which is, that's not a sure bet, right? But with that amount of money and, the amount of hype from that, I think that it would get us very, very, very close to the quote unquote finish line for nationwide NG 911. So we've got a couple of nits, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say, are there any concerns or anything that with this bill as it's written? I'm sure there are a lot of moving pieces to it, but there's got to be some sort of. I mean, there's always something, right? Are there any concerns as as it's written now?
Yeah. So there's one just monster concern, and then there's a number of sort of lesser concerns that we may be able to polish out. But the monster concern is this really bizarre sort of like, it's like the sky is blue argument, where like it's really hard to form an argument against someone who doesn't believe that the sky is blue. So like when I say NG 911 standards, right? Like a couple of words come to mind. Right. When I say commonly accepted standards in NG 911, right, there's a couple of words that come to mind. I don't know if you guys want to take a stab at them. Maybe a particular organization that you've heard of, or a standard that was mentioned in one of the sponsor messages beforehand. We can't get this coalition of public safety organizations at the other side of the table to say that NENA standards are commonly accepted in NG 911.
Which is the weirdest thing, considering that every single rollout of next generation 911 in the United States today, and Canada, I might add, happens to be built off from the NENA I3 standard.
Yeah.
Not to mention a whole host of other standards that go right along with that I3 standard.
Yeah. So the way that this, if we drill down into it, right, there's this term called commonly accepted standards, and in bills, right, you'll see specifically defined terms, like when we talk about 911 saves, right, the definition of the term first responder. So in this bill, there's a defined term called commonly accepted standards. And the way that it sort of has teeth in the bill is that it says if you're a state and you're applying for a grant from the federal government, you have to ensure interoperability, for instance, through the use of commonly accepted standards. The problem here is that like the definition for commonly accepted standards has this huge hole in it. That's shaped suspiciously like NENA, but that also is big enough to fit like a lot of other SDOs through, particularly like GIS SDOs, right? Like Open Geospatial Consortium. And so the geospatial community is really scratching their heads about this as well, because it seems like the author of that definition just like spaced on the fact that GIS is like super integral to anything that you do in NG 911, right? It replaces ALI, it replaces MSAG, but it also handles, I mean, everything has to have a location, right? All elements are going to have a location in NG 911. And so there's sort of this glaring omission. And so we're putting as much pressure as we can on Congress to say, look, this is a real problem if this language goes through, and if this public safety NG 911 coalition that's made up of these public safety organizations continues to refuse to believe that NENA standards are commonly accepted, we are going to have absolute chaos in the grant program, because you're either going to have people not applying for grants because they don't want to put their necks on the line, lest they get that money clawed back because it turns out their application was ineligible. You'll have, you could have like public safety and industry sort of getting together to like fib about standards compliance. Because the thing is, like, a lot of the vendors aren't going to, if they're offering i3 solutions, they're not going to just like redo all of their solutions to be not i3 compliant anymore, or to be compliant with some other standard which doesn't exist. And so you're probably going to end up having i3 compliant procurements, but it's going to be on a wink and a nod basis, which is extremely not what we want when we're spending millions of taxpayer dollars on NG911. And then, you may have these just sort of catastrophic situations where like you have a vendor that lost a bid protests on the basis of like, the RFP didn't refer to commonly accepted standards to the extent that they wanted, right? And then you've got a state that's stuck in litigation and that has now missed the window for the grant money and now has to return the grant money and now is back at E911.
Not to mention the fact that we have at least 9 states that actually have written NENA standards in their state level legislation. Yeah. So, and Michigan is one of them. Michigan actually wrote NENA standards in their legislation. We can't use anything else in the state of Michigan because Michigan pays for our 911 network after the fact. So we have no choice but to use NENA standards, which means the entire state of Michigan is out. We can't use those funds.
What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So this is crazy. Like there's definitely way more to this. And so I can see where these, definitely where this concern is, because if you've got, those states, like you're saying, that are using the standard, but it's not recognized and everything, and they can't get any of that money. I mean, it's bad enough that there's already places or still places around that don't have 911, right? They still have like 10-digit numbers. Yeah. And if we were to get this in a perfect world, like you're saying, everyone should be able to have this, especially now. I mean, come on, we should have flying cars too, right? But we don't. But anyway,
100%.
But it's crazy to think that a lot of states, a lot of agencies, rather, just all of it encompassed, would not be able to get any of those funds because of how it's currently written. I mean, so then what do you do? How do you fight this? How can those who are watching right now, in their agencies, how can people kind of push for things to get changed? I mean, what can be done?
Yeah. So the easy product placement answer is sign up for GTW, right? It's free this year. And it's all online. So like, you'll have like 2 hours of me telling you exactly how to do this. But the short answer is that you should be talking to Congress, that you should be, putting stuff on either a state chapter letterhead or your PSAP's letterhead, right? Like whatever the highest organization you can represent yourself as to Congress. And anything really, right? You can just say, I am a 911 professional. This is extremely important to me too, right? Don't get me wrong there. Reach out to Congress and tell your congressman, hey, this NG911, the NG911 parts of the Lift America Act, that $15 billion is very, very exciting to us. And that's a huge opportunity. It is absolutely essential that we get it right. And right now that language in there has the potential to get it very wrong. And this can affect a lifetime of 911 implementation, right? It's not every day that you get a bite at a $15 billion apple as in any industry. So yeah, it's absolutely essential that we get this as perfect as possible before it goes out the door. And the more voices, the better on this. The more congressional staff are learning about this stuff, the better, 100%. You're going to run into a lot of staff who are very familiar with commercial telecoms, but not so much with public safety telecommunications, which is, it's not the easiest discussion to have, but it's also not the hardest, fortunately. But they do want to learn about this stuff because they've been lucky enough, right, to run into not only someone who's an expert on this, but someone who's a constituent and an expert. And that's huge for them. They would be more than happy to hear your conversations. And fill my inbox, right? I've got leave behind documents for these things. Like I already have stuff typed up, so that you don't have to type this up on your own, right? You don't have to worry about, like not getting it right or something like that. Yeah, I'm really happy to help with outreach on that, in whatever way that you all are comfortable doing.
No wonder you said you haven't been sleeping much.
It's like we've been doing GTW for the last 6 weeks, just stretched out.
Man.
Yeah.
Before we move into talking about GTW here, what are your thoughts on this, April? And also, I guess for the both of you as well, how can anyone get a copy of this bill to read more and become more, educated on this, so that they can do just as you said, to reach out and really, just add another voice to the entire group to say that this is something that's important, and like you said, we want to make sure that it's done right.
Absolutely. I think it's important that you read the bill, because quite frankly, when you read the bill, you start to go, oh, wait a minute, what is that? What does that mean? I don't understand. Why do we need that? So the easiest thing you can do is just Google Lift America 2021, Lift America Act 2021. You'll be able to find a copy of the bill. And the NG 911 section of the bill is under, as Dan mentioned, Title I, the broadband communications and NG 911. It's subtitle E, so it's the very last subtitle in that specific, the very first portion. And it starts on page 178 of the bill. So there's it's 496 pages long. So I think you want to go directly to 178. Don't read everything else, because it's going to be a
little bit.
That'll be a really
a little bit there.
fest. Yeah. But yeah, it's super easy. It's an easy read once you start reading it. But there are definitely a handful of things in the bill that are problematic for the 911 industry, not because we're Nina, but seriously, read the bill. You'll get it. You'll understand what we're saying. Don't take our word for it. Read the bill. So just Google the Lift America Act 2021 and start on page 178.
Yep. Far as I know, it doesn't have a number yet.
Mm-hmm.
So usually there's a little bit of a delay between introduction and the bill being actually assigned a number and then hitting congress.gov. So the place you're going to find it is actually on the House Energy and Commerce Committee website, and it'll be like a link at the bottom of a press release. So if you find the press release, you're probably in the right spot.
Awesome. Well, some of those that problematic issues you were talking about, I think this comment here is to that. Situations like this is what this emoji was made for.
Right?
You cracked the code. I've never seen that emoji used successfully.
Until now.
Yeah, that is. Oh man. Okay, so I have already, and also all of you who are watching right now, I already put it in the comments. But if you have any questions at all for the panelists, please throw your questions in there and we will go over them as well. Even if you have, we're continuing on and you have a question going back to our first topic, this NG911 bill, please go ahead and put it in there. We'll go back and we'll talk about that as well. But I want to move on here now to GTW, because as you mentioned, to learn more about this NG911 bill, things that are in it, as well as some of these concerns and, what to do to help get it right, just all of it. You've got this conference. And so every time, since the first time I went. I remember a couple years before the first time, I kept telling my bosses, I really want to go to this conference. I was like, it looks very interesting. I would love to go and do it. And I finally got the chance. And and it was amazing. It was completely different. I think one of the cool things too is the fact that every single day I was looking fly in a suit, you know, just walking around
And your bow tie.
that's
I
right.
will
Yeah. And
point
my bow
out.
Oh
tie
yeah.
and
Yeah.
just, attending all different kinds of sessions and meeting with reps. And it was one of the coolest things. And all of you who are watching right now, definitely register for this. They're doing it virtually, but it's a teaser for the following year so that you can go. And
Mhm.
man, it's a good time. There's so much education. Now, if you can explain what 911 Goes to Washington is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So 911 Goes to Washington, or GTW, is it's a pretty common event in Washington, and there's actually a season for them, right? Which is usually it's February to like April every year, which is nice because it's when the cherry blossoms come out, and when it's not quite yet 1 billion degrees, so you can wear your suit and feel good, but also not like sweat through it after 15 minutes in the heat. But basically, what it is it's an opportunity for our members, for NINA members, and for 911 to meet face to face with their elected officials. So ideal timeline is about 2 weeks before GTW happens, not this year, right? In person, about 2 weeks before GTW happens, you get together with your other state folks, which is the other cool part about this, right? It's like a field trip almost, like you're doing this with like 10 of your best friends. You get together and you email your respective offices, your House offices and your Senate offices, and you say, "Hey, we're going to be in DC in 2 weeks. We'd like to sit down with your staffer. If you haven't already met the staffer, a lot of folks who come to GTW already have a relationship with the staffer, which is great, but you don't necessarily have to. We'd like to sit down with your telecommunications staffer for NG911 stuff, or with your labor staffer for 911 save stuff. And we want to talk about what's been going on in 911 in your district." And then you take, if you're a PSAP manager, or if you're working in a PSAP, you take like your PSAP's like annual report, right? And you can distill that down, or you can give them the whole thing. And you say, this is what's going on in your district. Like, this is how many calls we answered last year. These are the kind of projects that we're working on. Here's how close we are to NG911. Like, here's where these taxpayer dollars are getting spent, and here's how we're saving lives on this. Did we mention that, we employ, right, like 20 other voters, right, in your PSAP and all of their families. And we are happy to be a resource to you going forward on this. So you get that meeting set up, right? And then you get to DC, and there's sort of day one, which is just a lot of me talking, so you can feel free to skip it.
No.
But it's a lot of advocacy 101. So it's like this, but on a much larger scale, about, sending advance meeting requests, sending documents in advance, following up, how to tailor your talking points, what the lay of the land looks like this year. This year would have been especially big because we have new administration. We've got a Senate that is now split perfectly down the middle. We've got a slimmed down Dem majority in the House. So things are a little bit unique. So we would talk about that. We would probably have some guest speakers. Last year, I had Matt McMurray from Representative Eshu's office just talk about, how meetings can go really well or how they can go really poorly from the staffer's perspective. So you get good tips on stuff like that. So a lot of it is learning sort of the art of advocacy. But then a lot of it's also like this really cool sort of like show and tell, right? Where you get to actually share your experience, share your perspective with somebody who has to listen to you because it's their job. Yeah, I don't know. April, do you want to add on to that?
Oh man, I'm going to tell you, Ricardo heard me talk about this many times before he actually got to go to 911 Goes to Washington. And I would always tell him it is my favorite conference of all I mean, I love all my NANA conferences, but this is my favorite conference because you get to go and you get to lend your voice. You get to say to your representative, I'm your subject matter expert. Come into my PSTAP. And it took me at least 5 years. I hate to say this, but it took me about 5 years of going to 911 Goes to Washington and meeting with my local representative until he about the 5th year, I said, I would like to, I want to invite you to come into my PSAP. I want you to come in. This is a great photo op opportunity. And not only that, I'd love to have your folks just sit down and plug in and hear what my call takers are taking and see how they handle these calls. And you know, that Christmas, now mind you, I was on vacation over Christmas. That Christmas, I actually got a call and they said, hey, Congressman Wahlberg would like to come in and visit your PSAP. And I said, I will be there. You tell me when, and I will be there. And so we did. He came in and it was wonderful. And to this day, he's always joking with me because he's like, oh yeah, I can't tell that you like 911. You definitely have, you know, I think you need to just, you know, get a little bit more excited about this topic. But you know, it takes some time. Sometimes it takes some time to actually make those inroads, but they work. And even now, Dan and I've had recent conversations with Congressman Wahlberg, and his office is now providing us with information that we didn't get otherwise. So it's quite a unique perspective, but it's so amazing. And to be able to do that, walk the halls of Congress and think of all of the history that has been there before you. It's just a phenomenal experience. I see that Sarah said it's her favorite conference too. She and I have shared that, had lots of conversations about that as well. So it's really awesome. And then being able to, you know, remember, this is one of the biggest things when you're talking to your congressman, and then I'll stop, Dan, because I know you have other things to say. But when you talk to them, remember that they're human beings. They're just like you and I. And they literally will, you know, they like to hear what's going on back home. They're in DC most of the time, and they want to be plugged in. So don't be afraid to talk about them.
A lot of the time they're from the district.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. They're from your home district. And like, you know, it's like, you know, if we're Midwesterners sitting here, right? It's like, you know, these families, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you went to high school with my little sister, right? So they're cool conversations on that level.
Absolutely.
Because you know, I mean, I'm not one to like talk a lot of crap about DC, but it is not home. And people really do love talking about home.
Right.
So they're always, they are very rarely hard conversations with staff. Right.
Yeah, it's always been really cool to go and be there. You know, I met with reps from Michigan. I was with the Michigan group a couple of years ago, and then you know, I went for, you know, Indiana as well. But there were, I think one of the things that I enjoyed, even though it sucked, that I enjoyed was getting lost in the Rayburn building. Because if you've never been to that building and you don't know where you're going, you will easily get lost when you're probably on the same floor that you're supposed to be on to go to for this tech showcase, and then you end up somewhere else.
I forgot about
like,
that.
Sir, do you know where you're going? I'm like, no, I don't actually. I thought I was going the right way. They're like, you needed to go this way and this way. And I said, okay, so I just needed to go around the corner because I was already in the right place. Okay, I got it.
That's not your fault that they built a wall in the middle of the hallway, though. To be fair, right? Those those buildings are an abomination. This is not a commentary on your sense of direction, Ricardo. I promise.
It was fun. It was fun. Like I said, it sucked because I got lost and I ended up being late because I was supposed to help out with one of the demos. But I was still able to do what I was supposed to do. I just remember afterwards thinking, man, you fool. But it was fun because I also got to see a lot of the building as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can easily get lost in there. But that's probably one of my favorite things. But also, just walking around and seeing everything the way it is. Like you said, the history, just like all of it, and just being a part of these discussions. And I want to put this on the screen here really quick, but Jeremy says, somewhat unrelated, but Nina knocked it out of the park last year with virtual Nina 2020. If 911 GTW is even close, it'll be great. Looking forward to it. And with that said, I mean, can we get kind of a preview or maybe even a highlight on some of the sessions that people can look forward to?
Yeah. So this year it's going to be a little bit lean because we've been basically like dragging out GTW with this campaign for the last like 6 weeks. But we're gonna have a morning full of our talking points for 911 saves and for NG 911. They're going to be a lot more robust than they have been in past years because we are so much more closer to the finish line on both of those issues. And then in the middle of the day, now we're going to do the NG 911 Institute honor reception from noon Eastern to about 1:30. That's going to be nestled right in there, which is cool because, I mean, in lieu of being able to like sip cocktails while this thing's going on, you can at least eat lunch and you don't have to stay up late. And then starting at 1:30, we're going to do sort of the standard panels, like the update panels that we normally do. So we're going to have an update on what NASNA is working on. And we're going to have an update from Lori Flaherty in the 911 office. And then we're going to do our FCC update from David Firth, which I honestly don't know how he's going to pack all of the stuff that the FCC is working on into 45 minutes. They've been tiring us out. We at one point asked for an extension for an FCC proceeding just because we were like exhausted. we're like, there's just too much going on right now. I've got like 3 proceedings happening at the same time and all these events and stuff. So we'll have that. And then we're also going to have a panel where I sit down with probably, no promise, well, a couple of people. I'll just say, suffice to say, I don't want to put them on the spot, but a couple of folks from NASNA and a couple of folks from ICERT, from folks who represent the association that represents the response industry. And we're going to talk really deeply about this NG 911 bill, sort of beyond the talking points, which I think is going to be a really interesting discussion because there's a lot of stuff that's happened that has not reached the ears of the memberships. And in my opinion, that's for the worse, right? I think that was a miscalculation, frankly. And so, yeah, I think it'll be definitely a discussion that's worth sticking around for.
Excellent.
And then as a cherry on top, what we're going to do there is, so normally what we do is we have you set your meetings a couple weeks ahead of time. What we're going to do from GTW this year, it'll be sort of a launch point because Congress comes back the week of April 12th, next week. They come back from their Easter recess. So we're going to say, from this GTW, go schedule your meetings now, right? Send these emails this afternoon, get a Zoom call on the books or a phone call on the books for the next couple of weeks. And then in, I want to say like 3 weeks, we're going to have like a follow-up sort of mini con that's probably just going to be like a Zoom type situation. We're not going to have like a full-blown platform where we do follow-ups. Maybe we do some breakout rooms to talk about like how the meetings went, talk about how staffers responded to talking points, things like that, any sort of interesting developments. So this will be like a sort of expanded GTW in terms of time frame.
Oh, very nice. I'm digging it. April, what are some of the things that I guess that you're looking forward to with this virtual one compared to those in the past? Because I'm thinking that you know one of the things too is that a lot of people that normally wouldn't get a chance to go to this conference in person um, are going to be attending virtually to be
Yeah.
able to see what this is all about. I mean, this is an excellent way to kind of not even just get a teaser. I mean, you're going to get full blown. You say lean, and you're right. It is lean because when you go, there's a lot. But it's good. It's a lot of information, to be able to take in. But I think that there's going to be a lot of first timers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got. I think we're coming close to like isn't the number like 1,000 registered or something like that right now, which is
Nice.
crazy. That's like over 3 times what we usually get to
You're gonna give me an
go to
awesome.
GTW. I know. I just saw how red your face got.
Yeah, one of your
but-
eyes rolled back and then came back.
But I think it's really going to be awesome because you've got all of these people who have never been able to attend before. I saw Leah saying this is her first time, and I'm so excited that it is her first time, that she'll be able to listen in, there's so much, like Dan said, there's so much going on right now in the world of 911 and the NG 911 bill, GTW, the 911 Saves Act. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There is a ton of stuff going on at the FTC right now, and all of that affects us in the PSAP. And how does that affect us? And operationalizing those items, and what does it mean to the person who's actually going to consume the information? So there's a lot going on, and this is just going to be really great, I think. And I'm hoping, the other piece of what Miss Leah had said earlier was she's looking forward to this being her first, and next year going to her first in person. So we know this has to happen, right? We're not going to lock ourselves in our houses forever. At least I'm hoping for that. So.
I have to jump in and say that, and I would like to know, from the both of you too, but favorite moments from past 911 Goes to Washington. And so there's 2 that I can think of right off the bat. And the first one was, I don't think it was a year ago. I think it was 2 years ago. Steve Souter went up and gave a talk. Man, I love that guy. That dude is awesome. He went up there and he spoke and just simply spoke. There was no presentation. There were no notes. There was nothing. And I was just watching in awe. I think everybody was watching with their jaws dropped because it was just amazing to listen to him and some of the stories that he was telling and everything. And then he was done and it's like, oh, whoa. And everyone's like, yeah, like that was awesome. So yeah, like Jeremy says here, Steve Souter, enough said.
Yeah.
And so that was an awesome moment to remember. And the second one that I remember, and I remember sitting and at the table, and April, I think we were still coworkers at the time, and you were sitting next to me on my right, and I just happened to look to the left, and 2 good friends, I heard them kind of chuckling. And I got my phone out right away and I sent them both a message to say, what are you 2 laughing at? And and it was Sarah and Wendy. And it was an awesome moment. I'll never forget that because through this conference, and as well as my work with the digital, but especially this conference, is when I got real close to Sarah and Wendy. In that moment, I remember specifically because afterwards they said, I ended up getting that message, and I thought, oh, somebody heard us or something like that. And it's just such a cool thing to be able to remember, and I'll never forget that. But for the both of you, what's a memorable moment that you have from a past GTW?
Oh, I get to go first.
Okay.
You mentioned, so I've been bursting, and the minute you started talking about Steve Souter. So I had been attending 911 Goes to Washington for several years, and I worked with Steve through TFOPA. I was on the task force and Steve was one of the chairs. And I got to be really good friends with Steve through that process. And he 2 years in a row, he told me, you've got to come and see my PSAP. When you're at 911 goes to Washington, you have to come and see my PSAP. So I said, okay. The second year, the first year, I'm like, okay, sure, he really wants me to do that, right? He's just being nice. Well, the second year when he said it, I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I set it up, and Steve came to pick up the entire Michigan contingent. So I was there with all of my Michigan folks. There was like 10 of us, and we're walking out of the Senate building, and as Steve is pulling up, and there's a caravan, and I thought, I'm looking like we look like we were distinguished guests, because he pulls up in his vehicle that has the lights on, parks right in front of the Senate building. We all walk out, get into the caravan. He's got the lights on as we're driving away from the Senate building, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the coolest thing I had ever done. And his PSAP was fantastic. I mean, the man is just such an amazing person on so many levels. He's just a huge, huge, wonderful human. So,
yeah, I remember you telling me about that, and I just thought, yep, he'd be the one to do that, because that is very cool. Rolling out the red carpet and bringing you in, because that's the way he is. That dude is awesome, man. Yeah, love it. How about you, Dan?
All right. I have. Okay, so can I have two? Is that okay?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I think number one by a hair was day one of, I think it was day one of last year. Getting Representative Torres as a keynote speaker, and just having her, there was this moment where, because these things sort of happen exactly how you'd expect them to happen, right? Like the Congress folks have an entourage, right? And so they're sort of whisked down the stairs. I think we'd had Bree like escort her down into the basement of the Hyatt where we used to be in that cave, and seeing her sort of get handed off from her entourage, and like immediately into like a few of our board members, like I think it was like Monica and like Charlie Cullen, and I think Jameson was there, and I think Karen was there too, not yet board member then, Karen. But hi, Karen, by the way. But it was like I got the chance to finally step back for a second because I was standing next to her comms guy, and it was like she was just like coming into her tribe, and there was just this like moment where the energy changed, where she went from Representative Torres to like Norma Torres, like human mom dispatcher. That was just the coolest thing.
Giving me goosebumps, man.
It was just, oh man, it was just this moment of like perfect authenticity. In this sea of like prep and like, people wanting to be on panels and like, all of this, like, don't trip in front of everybody because you got to put on a good show. It was just, it was the coolest thing. Number two is probably going, and I can't even remember where it was. It might have been like Tortilla Coast. No, it wasn't Tortilla Coast, but it was somewhere on the hill with you all, with the Michigan gang. With like,
oh yeah, it was the Teddy Roosevelt place. The Teddy Roosevelt place. There. Oh my gosh,
I can't remember the name, but that was an awesome place.
Yes, like
I've been there a couple times.
Low ceiling, plastic cups. I remember being completely wiped.
It was so cool. It was cool.
Yeah.
And I see Sarah's comment about the South African embassy. That was rocking too.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the coolest events ever.
That was one of those ones that like up until 30 seconds before it happened, we were like, this isn't going to happen. We need to bail.
Oh man.
And then it just clicked. And then we were at the South African embassy. And
it was like, cool.
That's pretty awesome, to get a little behind the scenes there as well. Your moment that you talked about there with Congresswoman Torres, I had just finished recording an episode with her when she was headed that way. And I remember I took a picture with her and I said, well, I'll see you over there. And she's like, all right, Ricardo, I'll see you over there. I left way before them. When I got down there, she was already walking in and I thought, hell no. How did they get there before me? And I don't remember who I was talking to at the time. It might have been you, April, as I walked in, but I remember saying, I wonder how she beat me there and her crew. And someone, either you or someone else, said, they know all the passageways or something like that. And I started laughing. I was like, I guess so, because I didn't think there was any way they could have beat me, but they did. They beat me there.
We did that with Chairman Pai one year, actually. Yeah, because it was right around like all the net neutrality stuff. And so like we came in through like a staff entrance. Because, you know, whatever you thought about him on net neutrality, he was like really good to public safety during his chairmanship. And it was cool to have him speak. But they move in mysterious ways, these Congress people.
It's the craziest thing. Now, we just hit the 1 hour, but we're not done, because we've got another thing to go over here. And this is something that a lot of you saw here recently, that it got reintroduced, and we want to talk about the 911 Saves Act. So let's jump right in. What is going on now? We've got the reintroduction. For those who might not know, that are joining us, from other states, not a lot of people know, and also from other countries and all. What is the 911 Saves Act? What does it do for 911 dispatchers and call takers? What is it all about?
All right. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the bureaucracy here. So I want to say this was right around 2000. The federal government decided that it needed a uniform system for classifying occupations, so that a dispatcher meant the same thing to U.S. Department of Agriculture that it did to Department of Defense. And so accordingly, they assigned the Bureau of Labor Statistics to do this. And BLS created this thing called the Standard Occupational Classification System. And it is just this huge compendium of this sort of every conceivable major occupation class in existence. And when they did that, 80-20 principle, right? They probably got most things right. What they didn't get right was that they classified public safety telecommunicators. At that time, I think they were just dispatchers. They classified dispatchers as clerical workers, alongside secretaries, alongside commercial trash truck dispatchers, things like that. And they did that for a couple of reasons. They didn't do it because they hate 911, contrary to popular belief. They did it for they did it because of a couple honest mistakes, and a couple things that we can pretty easily fix as a community. Jeremy, you'll get my $1 at annual conference, Jeremy, if you're there. You got my word. So a couple of honest mistakes. The first one was they chose the classification based on job descriptions, which, for those of you, on video here, right, and in the chat, we know that job descriptions are often, very biased toward the more sort of clerical parts of being a dispatcher, right? Because not many people want to sign up for a job where you hear someone die. Right. So it's, and in places, what's the number, April? Is it 74% of PSAPs are 5 seats or less?
Yeah.
Right. And so, we've got a staffing crisis nationwide, right? So the more you beef up these job descriptions, the fear is that you're going to get less applicants, right? So the job descriptions were looking kind of soft. Also, BLS didn't collect a ton of them. I think it was only in like the triple digits. So, this was not a nationwide statistically valid survey. So they got this. They also classified based on the sort of like work performed. They did it classified on like an 80-20, basically, right? Where like they were like the work performed here is largely clerical. And then just in doing so, they just kind of ignored that like 20 to 25% of dispatching that is like absolutely like very high skilled. It's very high pressure, and it really just like grates on you as a person.
Mhm.
And so they totally ignored that. So we've got to set this straight one way or another. Now we can either do it through this like every decade BLS revises the SOCS. So we could submit comments to them. We can submit our job descriptions, right? We can sort of like win them over with data and statistics and stuff. Or we can have Congress pass a law that just says do it. These two things are not mutually exclusive. Belt and suspenders, that's fine. Obviously, the congressional solution is going to be quicker at the end of the day. And so, we're pushing for both at the end of the day. We think that, the outcome, no matter how we get there, is an improvement. I talked too long. Sorry.
No. This is good. This is good, so that people understand it, that the backstory is needed as well. So along with this, so what are the benefits? And I ask because all over social media there are different answers, like with anything. So
Right.
what are some of those benefits for dispatchers and call takers? For, let's say, this passes, what happens? Is it simply recognition? Is there more? Is it recognition, and then down the line more things get added because of this recognition or because of this passing? What exactly happens?
So 3 things. There might be a 4th one if it comes to mind. So the first here is we change the discourse, right? The BLS and the argument against legislative reclassification, the argument against 911 saves from BLS is that BLS is, the SOCS is merely a statistical thing, right? It is, this is not, it's not prescriptive, right? They don't dole out money. They don't have rulings on things like that. But we all know that that's not really true, right? That there is a discourse surrounding this stuff. There's a discussion, there's a conversation surrounding 911 dispatchers, and everyone in 911 knows and has felt that feeling that at some point or another they have felt like not the rest of public safety. And that's something that needs to change on every level that we can find to change it on. And one of those levels is the federal level, and that happens to be a really big one. And so you get a lot of sort of discourse level trickle-down effects from that. So that's number one, right? Is that it changes the conversation. Number 2 is that yes, this is a statistical classification. The important part about that is data collection. When BLS collects data on clerical professions, they're looking at instances of carpal tunnel syndrome. When they collect data on protective services, they're looking at the effects of PTSD. They're collecting data on line of duty suicides, right? These are the numbers that matter to 911 and to us, because this is how we heal our community, our industry, right? And how we keep people alive, both inside the PSAP and out. So yes, it is statistical, but yes, we need to be directing that data collection into stuff that is more than just like, how many times you got a splinter from a pencil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dan, one of the things I do want to say is even though the first rendition of this bill did not make it all the way through in the legislature this last round, it has made an impact. When Dan mentioned that, there want the need for collecting statistics like on suicides and things like that, the Congress has directed that now 911 dispatchers, 911 telecommunicators, the 911 profession, those the FBI now has to have statistics on those types of suicides. We were just working with the FBI on this, Dan and I and Ty, recently, to incorporate it into another portion of the statistics that law enforcement have to provide now through NCIC. So that's coming. So in the pandemic has also helped us show the need, what 911 professionals do day in and day out, and the fact that they are essential. Not only are they essential, they are frontline, responders. I'm sorry, I broke in there, Dan, but I think it's really important to say that it really did. It's already helping. And I really think this time we can move that goalpost to move it to the finish line because of some of these other things that have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, it is an incremental thing. And that's the other part about this that's key, right? Is that it is one step among many. And that's one of the things that we try to drive home with GTW, right? Is that you can't just like flip a switch on this stuff. It comes with just like years and years of just like steady tapping on your Congress folks, on your senators, right? And that's how you get that progress. And it's really hard earned. It just doesn't happen overnight. I would say, there's probably statistics out there about how many bills get passed on the first try, like standalone bills. It's probably astronomically low. It's probably like 5%, 7%, maybe. And so this is very common. What is not common is how widely supported this bill is, which is a huge part of this. And that's a huge thing that Representative Torres, I know that if I had her staffer in my ear right now, she'd be like, you need to be getting us more sponsors. Like, we need to get as many sponsors. We want to see 300 sponsors on this bill. So sliding in the little call to action there, right? Call your congressman, track down the labor staffer and say, hey, this revision needs to happen because X, Y, and Z. And I can give you that paper as well.
Yeah, that was going to be one of the things I was going to ask here as well is one, does it have the support it needs, or does it need even way more? And you kind of answered that already here as well. But what can be done? Those who are watching, what else can be done to help the bill get approved and go further?
Yep. So more sponsors is always good. Where we got gummed up last time was in the House Ed and Labor Committee. So what happens when a bill hits Congress is the parliamentarian determines where it goes in terms of committees of jurisdiction. So we had an interesting situation where on the Senate side, it went to the Homeland Security Committee, but on the House side, it went to House Ed and Labor. And what happened was the head of the House Ed and Labor Committee at the time, Bobby Rush, yes, basically turned to BLS and he said, what's your justification for this? And BLS gave him a justification. He said, okay, that sounds like a good justification. And then he just flipped, basically. Well, he didn't flip. He just like came out against 911 saves. There was actually a debate on the House floor, July of, I want to say 2019, where Representative Rush spoke against, sort of back to back with Representative Torres about this, and laid out BLS's case against reclassification, which is like a gold mine, right? Because that tells us exactly what we need to fix on these things, and what we need to fix inside the PSAP, right? In terms of like the information that we push out about the nature of this job, right? And the stuff that we need to just sort of flat out argue against and say, just you did a bad data collection. Sorry, fix that. So it got stopped up there and basically just died, which is what the vast majority of congressional bills do. Having already passed the House as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, which is another sort of like a twisty, windy road for a bill to potentially get passed. Representative Torres' office sort of saw the chance and took it and hopped onto the NDAA, and that's how it passed the House and got around the House Ed and Labor Committee. Ideally, we'll pass this bill standing on its own merits going forward, but that is still going to require going through the Ed and Labor Committee, which is going to mean convincing the leadership of the Ed and Labor Committee that this is a good decision, and that you got to overrule the technocrats once or twice to get a good policy outcome.
Is Nina going to have that same form? Like you guys had a form that was up on your website at one time. I don't remember how long ago it was now, but people could actually look up. You had a cool tool and form where you could look up your information, and it had kind of a template of what to write and all, and send something in. Will you be doing that as well, or anything around there?
Yes. Short answer real quick. James, thank you. Bobby Scott. I get Bobby Rush and Bobby Scott confused all the time, I think because of the cadence of their names. Whoops. But yeah, so Bobby Scott's the guy you want to be calling and complaining to, not Bobby Rush. I think Bobby Rush might have actually been a sponsor on 911 Save. So
Bobby Rush is currently getting phone calls. He's like, what are we going on?
Getting him out of bed.
I'm just playing, man.
Oh, no.
Thank you, James.
But so to answer your question, nina.org/reclassify. Our grassroots platform is back up. Send us similar messages last year, right? You can send an email to your congressman for the time being. Once we get 911 saves in the Senate, we will open it up so you can send your senators emails as well. And then you can also tweet at them. I would recommend, if you want to go one step above that, do that. But then also, if you can't find, then also find your congressperson's labor staffer and email them directly, because that's the person that's the subject matter expert that you're going to need to be talking to inside that office. And if you can get directly into their inbox, it'll keep you from getting like shuffled into that sort of like emailing a scheduler or a legislative correspondent that says, we really value your opinion. Thank you. We'll make sure that our boss sees this. You'll get a real person if you find their labor staffer. And if you can't find their labor staffer with 5 minutes of Googling, make it 6 minutes of Googling, email me, because I have a database that I pay for, and I'll just send you that person's email. Sorry to all the labor staffers who are watching this podcast right now. Buckle up.
Oh man, that is awesome. No, thank you very much for giving all of this information and everything. And just really quick from you, April, what are your thoughts on this? Tapping back into your dispatching days, and what does this mean to you for this to pass?
Oh man, it means the world. I can remember, and I saw somebody say this earlier on, I can remember getting a few of those first responders who would look at you and go, "You're just a dispatcher." And that was the worst feeling anybody, yeah, exactly. That was the worst feeling anybody who ever did that job could get. And it was it was heartbreaking because you did your very best. And quite frankly, I'm just going to say this, 911 professionals solve more crimes than law enforcement officers do, just so you know. And they do a heck of a lot more for them than they ever do for their 911 professionals. But that being said, watching throughout this pandemic and watching some of the times where we were really fighting for PPE and different things that you're not a first responder, you don't get that. And it was beyond disgusting to me to think that the people who are the first line of defense, no law enforcement, fire, EMS are never going to get to that caller if they don't place the call, and if that 911 professional does not help them until they arrive. And quite frankly, they keep people alive until they arrive. And it is so important that these people get the recognition that they deserve. But it's more than just the recognition that they deserve. They also need certain benefits. And I'm not talking about health benefits and all that. Those are benefits that come with most municipal jobs. I'm talking about mental health benefits. I'm talking about things that other first responders get that they don't. And we just have to rectify that.
Awesome. That is good, man. You got everybody in the comments all steaming. They're like, preach. Well, you know, that is a good segue into our wrap up here, actually, because we're going to be talking really quick here about National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And that is next week. And I just thinking back to when I was in dispatch, this was a fun week. I mean, we should be celebrated all the time, but you know, this week, you know, designated and everything. I remember, you know, we would get a lot of different things from supervisors, you know, our director, assistant director, deputy director rather, but we would also get a lot of stuff from also our other agencies that we were dispatching for, you know, fire, EMS, and law enforcement. And so I remember a couple times, there would be someone who would bring in just like a bunch of food that they had just grilled, and you know, they brought that in, or you know, their wives made a bunch of cookies or pies or something, and man, you got that you know, that NPSTW 15 that I would kind of get after at the end of the week, because that's a lot of food, man.
Amen.
Yeah, but it was really cool to, you know, have, you know, everyone come together and come in, and sometimes some people that would come in to drop stuff off, that was the first time ever coming into the center, and they would just be there and just kind of chill with us for a while and kind of take it all in. And a lot of the times they would say, yeah, I could never do this, so enjoy everything that we made you, because you deserve this and more. And I wish I could do more. So that's one of the things that I remember. And just, you know, the whole week was always good. But what about you, April? What are some of the things that you remember? And especially, you know, being a director as well, you know, what were some of the things that you did for your crew?
Well, we would go out. There was a lot of times we would work towards like getting donations and gifts and things like that. We did raffles. We had every year we had an open house. So we would invite the public in. We would also invite in. This was our week to be able to also educate our local officials as to what 911 did for them. What, you know, our county commissioners, they'd never stepped foot into a 911 center. How do we get them in there to see what what it is that these folks do for them each and every day? So that was one of the things we did. Every year, we always had a local state representative sign a proclamation. So there was a lot of things that were repetitive. On the flip side, then we also let the dispatchers come up with themes, right? What was the theme of the week? And they could decorate and they could dress differently during that time frame, and whatever made them feel comfortable and helped them celebrate themselves as well, right? It's one thing to tell your staff that, hey, you're doing a great job, it's another thing for them to celebrate themselves as well. And that was a really fun time to watch them celebrate and enjoy their job. But, you know, I'm curious too. At the pandemic last year, obviously NTW was really, sparse. A lot of folks weren't able to really do any type of celebrations. So, and this year, I'm sure we're going to be more social, have to still do the social distancing. We're a lot more adept at doing video conferencing and things like that. So I really hope that this year that you're going out, and even if you are doing just video tributes for your staff and playing them, and having people send nice little, whether it's an email or it's a some sort of a card or something, making sure your staff know that they are so appreciated, because what they do, like Ricardo, I did a podcast yesterday. I know I feel like I'm cheating on you, but I did a podcast with somebody else, and
How dare you?
I know, right? And that when I was doing a podcast, this is a group of individuals that had no idea what 911 did. Mm-hmm. And we played a call. It was quite frankly, it was a very tame call, but it was a domestic dispute situation with a child caller. And just listening to the call, you know, the folks that were on the podcast were like, oh my gosh, it just brought tears to my eyes. I just can't imagine. And do 911 professionals have to deal with that very often? And I said, you know, as sad as this is to say, domestic violence is very real in this country, anywhere in the world. And it is definitely something that they deal with on a daily basis. This isn't something, and it happens in small town USA all the way to, you know, urban areas. It doesn't matter where you're at. It happens everywhere. And they're like, oh my goodness, I just couldn't do that job. So many people say, I just couldn't do that job. But the vast majority of people who are in the 911 profession think there isn't another job for me. We love what we do. Now, we may not like it each and every day. I'm going to say there are days that you go home and you're like, I hate my job. But I'm going to tell you, being one of those people that I actually left the PSAP and came back because I couldn't live without it, I know what that's like.
Nice.
So, y'all are awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like I said, you should be celebrated every day.
Amen.
It is. This has been an excellent episode, having the both of you on and sharing all of this information as we go into the wrap up of this. And I want to. There's going to be two questions here, and a little different. But Dan, I want to start with you, and I want to see. You know, early on, I was talking about this transition that you did, you know, coming into 911 and all, and just learning it like crazy, just diving right in. But learning all of this and working with, you know, different centers and learning how they work, learning more and more about those in the 911 center that are taking these calls, these stressful calls. What does it mean to you to be able to have people answering these calls and go through all of this stress and everything that they go through, especially, you know, even thinking if there were ever a time that you had to call or something, what does it mean to you, and what have you learned from working in this profession?
Well, I actually called 911 like 3 weeks ago. We got robbed in the night. Yeah. Whoa. So I called DCOUC, and man, they were super professional about it. It's always that, it's just this incredible, like, intangible thing, where the voice on the other end, like, instantly meshes with yours. They know exactly what you're feeling, even though maybe you're trying to cover it up by like being cool and official. They're totally down with that, and they're like, yes, okay, fine, I understand it. Like, you're super stressed out right now, but I'll play along with you, so that I don't add stress to your situation, right? And so that we get the right information out. and it really is like, it's the development of an intuition about that stuff, and an empathy that's like a really base level empathy that, yeah, a lot of people can't do and will never be able to do with any amount of practice. I can't imagine. I don't know. I can't. This is gonna sound so like tacky, right? Cheap, but like I can't imagine working for a better group of professionals. Like, there's so many just god awful lobbying jobs in DC, right? Like I know people who lobby like oil and gas stuff, right? And I mean, there's jobs, right? But those guys play hardball, right? And they argue on behalf of multi-billion-dollar companies against other multi-billion-dollar companies. I get to represent people who are just, they're real people, right? And what you all go through, right? What NINA members go through is incredible. And I'm so appreciative on like a personal level for it. And I'm appreciative of this like professional opportunity. It's amazing. And I hope that I can do right by all y'all. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to say he does right by all y'all every single day. Nina is very fortunate to have you, Dan. We are very, very lucky. And so are the 911 professionals that we get to represent.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
For you, April, on this side, looking back at your career in public safety and your time in dispatch, what is something that you're most grateful for?
Oh, wow. Honestly, I am so grateful that I've gotten to do each and every, it's so hard to explain this. I am a firm believer that everything you go through in life, it makes you who you are today. And if I had not started off as a 911 telecommunicator and then moved my way up to trainer and then supervisor and then deputy director and director, and even moving over into, the private sector, I couldn't do the job that I'm doing today. Although I'm going to be real with you, this has been my dream job. The job I'm doing right now has been my dream job for 15 years. And when the day that I actually was offered the position was literally one of the happiest days of my life. Now one, because I had 3 children and now 2 grandchildren, and those are very, very happy days as well.
They're watching like,
yeah, right. But I really believe that everything that I've had to go through, and there's been some struggles. I personally myself have gone through some bouts of PTSD. I've had my struggles, and Ricardo loves to get me on his podcast to make me cry. And because I'm a crybaby, and I'm going to tell you, I really am. I just feel so fortunate to have been able to do all of the things throughout my career that I have had. And so many times people say, well, how did you get to where you're at? And I'm like, I'm not even sure how I did it, to be honest with you. I don't know. It's funny. I like to talk, and I know that shocks people. And I really, I'm definitely not shy about rolling up my sleeves and helping out and working hard at anything that I need to. And I think that's really how I've gotten there. Yeah. Thanks, Dan. But I think that's how I got there, but I don't know really at what point. I feel I'm very successul, but it's because of all of the things that I've done over the last 30 years in my career.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah, 10. That's it. But if I hadn't done all of those things, I would definitely not be where I'm at today. And I got to meet some really amazing people along the way. And a lot of those are actually watching, and it's just surreal to see people that you've met along the way, and then get to stay friends with people like you, Ricardo. You know, I remember when you were a little baby dispatcher, and
so long ago.
moving all the way through your career and being able to work beside you in so many different things. It's very surreal, and honoring. So very humbled to do what I do.
And it all started in the chair. That all started in dispatch.
It did.
Where it all began.
And I really was
literally where it all starts. Yeah. Well, thank you both very, very much. If anybody has any questions or they want to learn more about Nina or anything that we talked about today, where can they go?
Well, Nina.org is a good place, but I'm going to be honest with you. Well, okay, Nessman can't listen because he's still vacationing in the woods right now.
That's right.
The website's a little bit of a mess.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah, we make up for that with our personal touch, and we're more than happy to respond to emails. I think I can say that on your behalf, April. Is that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. I am Dan at Nina.org. Will work, or D Henry, whichever one you want.
How do I get April at Nina.org? Because I really like that. I think I should just do that instead of A Heinze at Nina.org.
I think that's awesome. I'll email Len tonight.
Okay.
Tell him.
tell him to hook her up.
Yeah. We'll make it happen.
And it was just Dan at Nina.org. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Nice. Very simple and short and sweet.
Short and sweet. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, right. And never hesitate to reach out to us. That's what we do, right? Our job is to be your resource. If we don't know something, we'll look for it and we'll find it and we'll get you the help you need. We can, if nothing else, we can point you in the right direction. But I know somebody who knows somebody, so we can definitely hook you up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Excellent. Once again, thank you both very, very much for being on this round 19. Ooh, round 19 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. It has been excellent. I've got the information in there in the comments for all of you who are watching here live, as well as on the replay. Their email addresses are there, nina.org. Make sure to go and check that out for the 9/11 Saves Act. You can check out nina.org/reclassify. All of that information is going to be there. Check out what's going on with NG911 bill as well. There's so much more to this. And of course, register for 911 Goes to Washington. It's virtual, it's free, and there is a lot of stuff that you're going to learn. This is going to be Tuesday, April 13th, and there's so much that is going to be coming up that's going to be awesome. So thank you all very much once again for joining us, and for the both of you and Nina for everything that you do, not only for the for your members, for the membership, but also for the industry as a whole. All of this that I have done, started at a Michigan Nina conference, and it's just been going on since then, and it's been amazing. So thank you to the both of you. And for those who are watching, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. And this episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. And this show will always be free, but if you're looking for any bonus content, you can check us out. That is going to be patreon.com/WTT podcast. You can see this on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as Twitter and YouTube. And for the main flagship show, Within the Trenches podcast, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you.
Bye, guys.
Hey, thanks so much, Ricardo. See everybody.